Hey everybody, in true Robuilt fashion, I forgot to tell you to like and subscribe at the beginning of the video that I've already recorded because I'm a dummy. So if you like my video and you like my content, please do those two things. It really helps me out as I try to do the whole YouTube thing. All right? All right, come on, let's do this thing. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Robuilt. This vlog kind of started off as one thing, and actually I think I'm going to change it on the fly. I'm going to be talking about house hacking in LA and how I was able to house hack my way into $1 million house here in Los Angeles. So as you can see, I have a tiny house behind me, and that's a big reason why I was able to get the value on my property up a little higher. So when we moved here, we were spending about $1,800 in rent every single month. No, $1,850 in an apartment complex where my one-bedroom apartment was 666 square feet. Exactly. 666. They couldn't lie and say 667 or 665. God forbid they had to be completely honest and give us like the devil's numbers of square footage. Very tiny apartment. It was me, it was my wife, and our two dogs. Very tight space at the time. It was so tight that when we actually moved here from Kansas City, we never unpacked like half the boxes and just kept them in half the apartment because there was literally nowhere to unpack our stuff. After doing this for about 6 months, I got super tired of having to pay $1,850 a month on rent, knowing that it was just kind of like being wasted, right, on rent, because you don't ever retain any of that money. As soon as your lease is over, you don't have any equity, it's gone. I figured, you know, if I'm going to spend that much money, I would rather buy a house and just stretch ourselves thin a little bit and figure it out. And that's exactly what we did. When we were looking for our house, we were looking for an area that was pretty good, obviously up and coming, but not necessarily super expensive. I'm a writer, she's a teacher. We don't make a lot of money. Unfortunately, we were not blessed to be born into a trust fund, so we didn't have that going for us. We don't have any pending inheritances. So we had to figure out how to make living in LA work. So we put in multiple offers on multiple houses in the neighborhood that we live in now. Actually, we put in offers in LA and in Inglewood, which is right over. A lot of people gave us a lot of crap for that. We really kind of believed in finding a place where there was a lot of diversity and just try to be a part of that community. So really didn't scare us at the time. Unfortunately, I think we put in 3 different offers on 3 different houses. We put in an offer of $40,000 over asking on all of them, and we never got them. But we struck out 3 times, and then we found the house that we currently live in, which was the most expensive in the bunch, and it was very scary at the time. It was $624,000 when we bought it, which I know if you live in, you know, Kansas or Missouri or Texas or anywhere, that's like blowing your mind right now, because I know that that is a lot of money for those places. But in LA, it's really not that much money. Today, if you're trying to find my house, like as a fixer, my size in a neighborhood like this, you're looking at $800,000 to $900,000 like right off the bat with like no renovations, and that's with you doing a lot of the work yourself. But what this house had that was a really big selling point to us is it had a 300 square foot studio apartment underneath, which is very small, but hey, it's LA, right? Now, the previous owner before us actually had a bathroom and a crawl space, and she actually converted that into a fully functional space with a bathroom, a kitchen, a sink. And so I thought, hey, I mean, I had heard about Airbnb at the time, but I was like, well, worst comes to worst, we can rent it out. And I thought maybe we could make $2,000 or $3,000 a month renting it on Airbnb. It's worth a shot. Crunching the numbers with private mortgage insurance, with taxes, with insurance, and then our principal and interest, our mortgage was $4,000 at the time, which was like so much money. It was kind of a risk, but I felt pretty confident that we were going to be able to do this, that we were going to succeed in the Airbnb game. The first thing we did when we moved in is I spent 2 months down there every single night after work, basically from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. renovating the studio, basically painting walls, replacing baseboards, updating tile, new flooring, new appliances, a new backsplash, basically remodeling the kitchen, getting it ready to be rental ready. I worked so hard because I knew that the longer it took me to finish, the longer it would be that I wouldn't be making money on the studio. So I was really hustling to do it. I finished renovating the studio apartment, put it on Airbnb, and immediately we started making really good money on the actual studio itself. I was renting it anywhere from $80 a night to $125 a night, depending on the season and depending on, was it a weekend, was it a summer, and I was averaging $2,000 to $3,000 a month. As I said, my mortgage was $4,000, so baseline, every single month, half of my mortgage was being paid for by my studio apartment, making our total mortgage to live in our house $2,000 after it was subsidized by the studio. awesome. Then I had the bright idea, well, hey, we have a 6,500 square foot lot. What if we built a tiny house and rented that out as well? I was like, yeah, you know, it'll probably cost like, 25 to 40 grand. We'll get it done in like 2 months. It'll be no problem. And so I thought, it'll cost 25,000 bucks. We'll be done in 2 months. No big deal. Well, it took me about a year and 3 months to finish. It cost me $72,000. But at the end of it, I had this beauty right here. But I actually have a guest in there right now. It's probably weirded out that I'm like recording like in front of the house, but what are you gonna do? Anyways, yeah, so I built this house and I rented this house out for 1,500 bucks a month for about a year and a half. Granted, that was a lower rate, but I was renting it out to a friend, so I was just happy to have the security for a year and a half. And then I knew that one day, once he moved out, I'd be able to put it on Airbnb and make even more money. I'll get into the economics of building a tiny house in a different vlog, but I just wanted to talk about the income streams that I've made on this specific property. The actual amount or the note or the mortgage that I owe on this, I took out a private loan and in the amount of $45,000, and I paid for everything else out of pocket. That note is over 7 years and it cost me $691 a month. So if I was charging $1,500 a month and that was all bills paid, minus 700 bucks, it's about $800, and then let's say about another 100 bucks for like miscellaneous bills like water, electricity, gas, internet, right? About 100 bucks. So I was making about a profit roughly of $700 a month on this. So $700 here, $2,000 to $3,000 down here. In my best month, I was making $3,700 on the 2 units on my property. And again, my mortgage was $4,000. Well, then I got tired of paying PMI. So my next step there was to refinance out of my PMI because I built this tiny house and it obviously boosted up my value at that time from 624 to 810, and that was in about a year and a half. So in about a year and a half, my property appreciated, we got 74,000 plus 100,000, so 174, and then another 10. I can do this. $184,000 my property appreciated in 1.5, let's say 2 years, just from building this tiny house and making all the improvements that I made. After I removed private mortgage insurance from my mortgage, then my monthly payment was 3,700 bucks. So on my best months, I was not paying a mortgage on this house. Now, of course, I still had other bills like utilities and everything like that. Now, it just goes to show you that if you're a little creative with it, you can actually buy a house in Los Angeles. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's 100% private, but if your dream is to own a house, or if your dream is to own a house in LA, it's possible. It takes a little bit of hustle, right? After about 1 year of successful Airbnb-ing my property downstairs, I was making, let's say, like $2,000 to $3,000 a month. One of my Airbnb guests actually asked me if they could live downstairs. I was pretty closed off to the idea at first just because I liked making like so much money. But at the same time, LA does have a housing crisis. And so I thought it might be nice to rent it out long term, and then I could have a little bit of stability too, and I won't have to be washing sheets and towels every single day. So it's kind of a win-win on every single regard. And the agreement that we came to on the studio apartment downstairs was $1,850 a month, all bills paid. So again, I wasn't making $2,000 to $3,000 a month, but I was making $1,850 with not having to do any work at all. No stress of Airbnb, no stress of partiers or anything like that. Between the $1,850 and then the 1,500 bucks here, that adds up to $3,350. See, I knew I could do it. $3,350. So out of my pocket to live in my house in LA, I was paying 700 bucks out of pocket. No, I was paying about $400 out of pocket to live in my house, which is obviously really awesome. Fast forward to today, it's been about 3.5 years since I have built a tiny house, and I'm really very shocked to report this. I just did an appraisal on my house. The appraisal came in at $1,066,000. Ever since I bought my house in 2017. Granted, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I have no idea what that's going to do to the value, but let's just keep the pandemic out of this. If things were going like the way they were, then I would be sitting really pretty. Now, we're still house poor in my opinion. I mean, we supplement our mortgage and everything like that, but we're not, having $1 million house doesn't necessarily benefit you right off the bat because it's not like you have that money in your bank account, but it is nice knowing that I could sell my house today and make $200,000 or $300,000 profit. But here's the really big advantage of my strategy. So as I said, I can't just having $1 million house is cool, but it's not like it's in my bank account. But what you can do is borrow against your house, which is called the home equity line of credit. You can borrow up to, depending on your lender, 90% of your home's equity. If you have $1 million house, you can borrow up to 90%. So that's $900,000 in the line of a home equity line of credit. Now, if you owe $500,000, then that means you would subtract that from your $900,000 and you have $400,000 that you can borrow from at a really low interest rate. For me, my interest rate was 0% for 6 months, and then it went to 4%, which is like stupid cheap. You can't go out and get a loan for $400,000 at a bank for 4%. For me, what I've done is I've taken money out of my house to build another tiny house in Joshua Tree, which will be its own video as well. There's actually a tenant in there right now. But I took about $80,000 out of this house, built a house out there. The total house cost me $165,000 to build. That's just like one example of what you can do with your home equity line of credit. Having a home equity line of credit really opens up your options. So that's how I house hacked my way into a home in Los Angeles. And to be honest, it's really opened my eyes into being able to buy a house that's a little bit nicer, a little bit more expensive, but you share the lot with tenants, right? But you help them out by renting your place to them. They help you pay for your mortgage, and you can have kind of the best of both worlds. I'm a very social person. I like talking to people. I like kind of interacting with people. I'm very communal. So in a sense, I kind of feel like I have a little bit of community through my house. And then with Airbnb guests, like I'm host people from all over the world, from France, from Spain, from Canada, from wherever, right? And I meet people like all the time, and it's a really unique experience that a lot of people don't get. It's not for everybody. Again, some people are very private people and they don't want to share their property with other people. How many times can I say people? People? But in the end, I think it's worth it, because if I wasn't doing this, I would either own a house in LA and be paying $4,000 out of my pocket, or I would, I don't know, live in an apartment. But it actually benefits me to house hack, specifically because if, let's say I didn't have this arrangement and I was just renting an apartment in LA, if I was renting a 2-bedroom apartment in LA, it would cost me at least $2,500 in a neighborhood that we'd want to be in, anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 a month. No way to supplement that, straight out of our pocket. Every year, I would be paying anywhere between $27,000 and $36,000 a year in rent. With no means of like making money. So it actually benefits me greatly to own a house, have a tiny house, have a studio, rent those out, share my property with others, but not pay a mortgage. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. If you have any questions about house hacking, I'm an open book. Leave your questions down below. And also, now that we're on the subject, because I already forgot, please subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Robuilt. I'll probably do another episode of house hacking, but a little bit more in depth than even this. So yeah, I'll catch you on the next episode. What is time? Happy Sunday.